rules in the 2024 D&D books are wrong. Not quite, but kind of. We just got released on April 16th is the first core rules errata for the 2024 rule set. So this is specifically for last year's new books, the DM's guides, the player manual, and the monster manual. So if you're still working with 2014, don't worry about this. You can still watch this video. Please watch the video. But you don't have to worry about this. This isn't going to apply to that rule set at all. Essentially, if you don't know what an errata is, they essentially have a look at what corrections need to be made, and some of them are more just around grammar, text. The majority of the time, there's going to be certain corrections to stat blocks, how rules are written, other little things like that. So they can have decent impacts on your characters, on your monsters, on your game itself. Whether you need to look at this every single time, I've been using 2014 like 5th edition rule set for a long while, and I don't think I've ever looked at the errata to see what was ever updated or changed. But still, good information. If in case it's good to know as well, in case you ever seen a difference between like online text is saying one thing versus what your physical book is saying. Like how come there could be a discrepancy sometime? It could be good for that sort of sense to understand it. But for example, Player's Handbook. We have, looks like a change to Goliath traits, and that changes the wording of one of the ingrained, one of the traits for the Goliath. So you have advantage on saving throw, which has now been changed. You have advantage of an ability check. So that's actually a buff to your character. So if you were playing a Goliath using the 2024 rule sets, you want to have a look at this, because essentially now, instead of just being saving throws, which is mean like you're kind of rolling against reactions to something, you now have advantage on any ability check, which is pretty big change. Now, anyway, that's only one of them. I can see here going about there's some changes to Grappler, Poisoneer, Telekinetic feats. You know, the armor table is a little bit. So sometimes, like the armor table one, yeah, it's just a subheading change. So it's going to vary from one to one. Some of them are pure grammar, like phrasing kind of changes, but still, it's very worthwhile having a look to see if there might be something. Maybe if you felt a certain feat wasn't as strong, you might see that they've buffed it here. Well, I think one of the main ones is going to be in your monsters manual. The monster manual looks to have a lot of changes for a lot of different entries. The Ancient Red Dragon spellcasting used to be once a day. Now it's a once a day for each spell. Big difference. Presuming it had like a list of spells that it could cast, so instead of only casting one of them, now in combat is each one can be cast like in once during the combat instead of only one spell. Huge change to the Red Dragon. Some of them are just stat boosts like charisma changing, so some of them are nerfs for the Ancient White Dragon, you know, the Cloaker, Cultists, Hierophant, the Krakens. As a DM, these can be important to look at, I suppose. It really depends. You know, I find I often start changing certain stats about my monsters anyway, depending on the party and depending on how many is the party, depending what level I'm having them at, in case it's like a low level creature, but I wanted to throw it against a higher level party. So sometimes these, don't get too obsessed with these. You know, it's good to see that they're kind of actively changing things, trying to balance things maybe a little bit better. But, you know, like to remember to not go to your book, to remember to go to the errata for certain things. I don't know. I won't be too worried about them, but sometimes it's useful information to know. So essentially, and then for Dungeon Master's Guide, there's also a couple of corrections, nothing too crazy. They'll change to running the chase on page 52 of Dungeon Master's Guide. It looks like they've given a little bit more details on who drops out of a chase, depending on exhaustion levels, that sort of thing. And then there was a change to one of the treasure hoards. In one of the tables, they increased the value of, or decreased the value of one of the hoards. I'll leave a link in the description down below so you can have a look at this and read through this. I'm reading through it on D&D Beyond at the moment. You should just bear in mind though that obviously none of these changes are going to take place if you've already bought the physical versions of the DM guide, the player's guide, or the monster manual. These changes will be implemented into current print editions of these books, and I imagine the PDFs, if you have access to a PDF of these books as well, like if you legitimately bought the PDFs, I imagine they should be like changed up there. It doesn't specifically state it, but you should be able to see that here as well once they go live. You can also actually download the errata itself for the different books if you wanted it. So you can, like, if you wanted to print out that extra page and maybe just attach it, like leave it in the back of your book, something like that, just so you have a quick at hand if you do want to make sure that you're kind of running the right rules as written. And that's pretty much it then. So, you know, keep an eye out on this, keep an eye out for when erratas come out. Sometimes they can be useful information. I don't know now if this is one and done, if that's it, or if they're eventually going to change another one. But anyway, let us know what you think, and if you haven't followed already, give us an sub, would you? See you next time.